Recording is on.
Hey everyone, I'm Mo from the Bitcoin Design Community. It is the 12th of January 2023, and we are on a UX research call. And the focus of today's call is going to be user journey mapping. That is going to be a presentation done by Jakub. He's put something really amazing together. I will just hand it over to him.
Hey, I'm Jakub. Let me share my screen. Okay, do you see it? Journey mapping. Okay, let's go. So what are journey maps? So journey maps are just, in the most simple terms, are a way of displaying user or customer experience related data on a timeline in order to work with this data. So this is just a very high level, very general definition I come up with. And why would we do this? Because in this way, we create a point of view that is very convenient for interpreting user data and gaining insights. And depending on how detailed you create it, it can be at the same time in-depth and concise in a way how it presents the data, which makes it a great means of communication of our research findings with the rest of the team, and can help align mental models around the experience with team members. It's also a great basis for the research and for their work, design product work. And in my opinion, it's one of the most flexible UX research tools. It's very, I don't know how to explain. It's very modular in a way that we can kind of compose the map in a way that it's useful for us, and basically can be used in, I think, every phase of a product development lifecycle. Okay, so journey maps can vary heavily in what they display, what kind of data they use or how they use it. And we can we can kind of look at journey maps on 4 angles or 4 categories. And I think it's important to consciously decide where our journey map that we want to create lies in those categories, taking into account our research goals and our capabilities. So first angle is reliability of journey map. And it can be research-based or assumption-based. So basically, research-based journey map is a map that is based on real user data, and it can be any user research data we have. So like in-depth interviews, usability tests, but also like recorded sessions of real usage of some product, or research-based personas, surveys, collected feedback, and basically anything. We can also combine those sources into one map. And assumption-based maps are, we base it only on assumptions or mostly on assumptions, and this can be useful at the beginning of research, I think, as a kind of that will help us structure further research, and eventually, ideally, it should lead to a research-based map. Another angle is the state, and there's a current state or future state map. So current state maps are mapping the existing experience of either a product or some broader experience, right? So it can be a map of existing product that we want to improve, for example, a current map of usage of Chivo wallet, or it can be a map of a broader experience that we may want to create a product that solves some problems with that experience, right? So for example, existing experience of sending remittances abroad. And future state map is a map that maps a potential experience that we may want to for our users to have. And that would be, for example, we can come up with a map that would be the best non-custodial Bitcoin wallet experience that we may want to add to Bitcoin Design Guide, for example. Next one is the scope and scale. And this is basically where our map starts and ends. How much do we want to zoom in a way of the experience we were describing? So high level maps address broader experience or maps longer periods of time. This can be sometimes even kind of abstract, like an experience of falling into Bitcoin rabbit hole, right? We can map how different people fall into rabbit hole and what are the steps in that and what are the difficulties, for example. But it can be even broader, like using Bitcoin across human lifetime, right? So how children use it, how adults use it, etc. And detailed map address more specific and detailed activity or shorter periods of time. And this can be, for example, a detailed map of a wallet onboarding experience. So from first contact, like seeing a wallet in a conference or on Twitter, through all the learning process, installing, onboarding screens, and first usage. And the last angle is focus. And there are product-centered maps and experience-centered maps. Experience-centered maps are often called experience journey maps, and they're sometimes described like distinctively. And product-centered map focuses on experiences that are touch points with our product or service or brand. For example, sending Bitcoin from Chiva wallet to Chiva ATM. But experience-centered maps map overall experience that may contain many different activities, many different products. For example, we can map withdrawing fiat for Bitcoin in El Salvador, and that can contain like speaking with locals about how to do this, finding Chivo ATM on Google Maps, taking a bus to that place, standing in a queue, using Chivo ATM, then using Blue Wallet to send Bitcoin, and taking out money, and so all that it can contain a very long journey that is across multiple different products and activities. So these are four kind of, each map can be basically divided into these two categories across these four categories. So that's the typology, but there's also a structure. So we need to decide what kind of information we want to show in our map, what will be really useful to put it there. So I'm going to briefly talk about the most common categories or lanes, how they're called, because they're on a horizontal, they're shown on a horizontal level. And keep in mind, you don't need to use all of the categories. You can only use those you find useful. And also these here are not all categories that are possible. There are many more, and you can basically come up with your own categories that you find particularly useful in that case. One of the main categories is an actor or just an user, depending on how you would like to call it. So we need to think who experience we are mapping, right? And this can be a singular experience of a real person from a usability test or in-depth interviews. Or it can be a persona that is ideally a synthesis of singular common experiences mapped into one experience. Another one is a scenario, which is a description of real or anticipated situations and contexts of an actor experience. And it describes an actor's goal or needs that led them in experience. So these are usually have all of those in every journey map. Next, we have stages. And stages or phases are they structure the experience map into bigger chunks of a common theme or goal. They're usually made of several steps. Steps or user actions are a sequence of experiences, activities, or events in our user journey. And basically they describe everything what happened to the actor, and the more steps we divide the experience, the more detailed map we get. And this is basically the basis for all insights that we'll work on. So this is very crucial how detailed we want our map to be. Next is a storyboard, which can be any visual representation of steps, so illustrations, screenshots, photos, sketches, anything we have, anything that may be useful. Next is emotional journey, and this is, I think, also on basically any journey map. And this is just a graph representing an actor's emotional state at each step. It usually scales from -2, which is like very negative, to +2, which is a very positive. And this is useful for like quick assessment of moments where there are problems to solve or very positive experiences to strengthen. Then there are quotes or thoughts that can be also placed on the emotional journey. So any useful quotes that an actor said or thought, or we know they thought during the experience. And then, so this, up to this point, this is a kind of description of the experience. And then these smaller ones, starting from touch points on the structure on the slide, are more of interpretation, and maybe not from touch points, from like pain points, but they're the interpretation and insights of the experience, right? So yeah, but first touch point and channels are still, they're not interpretation, they're still part of the description of the experience. And so touch points, they tell us, touch points are moments where the user interacts with our brand or company or product. And they're useful in experience-centered maps when we have involved many products or activities to point out where our product is. And the channels are just a means of contact between the user and a service. And this can be a website, an app, a print advertisement, or in-person contact with company representatives. And now there are the insights, which are the most common are pain points. We just insights about that points out the specific problems that user faced during the experience. Opportunities, and these are insights on moments in the experience when there are chances to improve that actor experience within that step. And they can focus on solving a pain point and strengthening existing good experiences. I find it useful to describe what is the opportunity in a kind of general term, and then think about what would be a product solution to that, right? A feature or change in the product. Moments of truth are kind of decisive, very critical moments in the experience that can often make or break the overall experience of the person. So they can often decide whether our user will stop using the product at all or will just fall in love with it. It can be like a first contact with a product, or first time seeing it in real life, or first usage of a product. Yeah, and one more, which is not here, I wanted to mention, is stakeholders and ownership. So this just describes who or which department of the company is responsible of that part of the experience. And I want to show you two examples, but maybe up to that more theoretical point, there are some questions or your thoughts on the structure or typology.
Makes sense to me.
I thought this was super interesting, this breakdown. I've looked at journey maps before, I've used them, but I never had this kind of top level overview. And I think it's really good if intentionally make those decisions about the typology. Is it about today? Is it about the future? Is it about the experience? About the product? And then, yeah, I think that's super helpful.
Yeah, so I can move to showing you two journey maps I did. One is the one I did lately for Alby, and this is I pointed out the typology of each of those here, so I can kind of tell you the difference. So this is a research-based persona because I kind of did a guerrilla usability test, or more like an exploration, because I didn't have a certain scenario. I just had a very like a 2-sentence scenario to my friend that you heard about Lightning Network, you heard about this product Alby, and you just start. You want to try it, and that's all. So he started with like Google, finding Alby. So those are a very kind of guerrilla situation, but with a real person onboarding. And this is a current state map because it maps a current state of Alby's onboarding. It's a detailed map because it details a breakdown of users onboarding in a product. And it's a product centered because it's only made of touch points out with Alby. And I used categories like journey phases, user actions, which user actions are more objective, experiences, observations, and these are more my interpretations of these objectives, user actions. So like he doesn't know this or he doesn't understand this. Opportunities and / improvements. So I was kind of seeing opportunities, how to improve, and I at the same time wrote down potential solutions. And pain points, marked pain points or potential pain points that that I thought may happen for some other users, but maybe not particularly for Marek. So yeah, and I started just to show. I don't think it's worth going through the whole journey map, but just to show you phases, very high level view. There's finding Alby. So this is the part where he was trying to find any information about Alby and just landed up on the landing page. Then yeah, he chooses to install it on Google on a Chrome store. Then these yellow ones are steps in Alby's onboarding. This is the last step of Alby's onboarding. But I also wanted to try what's the first usage of that, because I kind of regard it as a part of onboarding, since users usually after they finish onboarding try to use it for the first time. So I expanded it with that part, and then there are quotes on the emotional graph, and then basically this red and green parts are opportunities I saw or pain points I saw, and I was also noting kind of in not very structured way ideas how to solve it, or questions I have for Alby team, or other kind of stuff that would eventually lead me to come up with some recommendations and then designs. And the other map I did is actually an experience journey map, and I did it with a team on postgraduate studies, when we tried to design a product that helps people to go through their home renovations. It's in Polish, so I only translated these categories, but yeah, it's research-based journey map. And it's based on 2 research-based personas, and we come up with these personas when we interviewed, I think, 8 people, and then from that 8 interviews we did like 2 personas when we found common experiences of those 8 people. And so every event or every every information here is a real user data, but from 8 different people, right? Or in one persona it was probably like 4 people, and the other 4 people. So, but they are kind of merged together. So it's not like this is not a real person, but it's the real experiences of many persons. It's a current state journey map because it mapped a current real experiences of house renovation. It's very high level. It's not detailed because each phase here it's basically a phase of a house renovation that can take weeks or months, and it's experience centered. Yeah, it's experience centered because it maps a house renovation experience, not any particular product or service. Yeah, and the categories, what does Maciek want? So these are in every phase kind of goals of that phase, main actions that was common during that phases, quotes, emotional lane, and channels and touch points, tools they used, moments of truth, and opportunities. And yeah, that's all I have. If you have questions, I'd be happy to answer. Or I also wanted to ask if you've done journey maps yourself.
This was really well presented. Thank you so much, Jakub. The typology part was completely new to me. I wasn't familiar with this. So this is really interesting. Around the reliability, the state, the scope and scale, and then the focus as well. It's really interesting whether you're researching the current state or the future state. I had a question with regards to developing, because I saw in the beginning of the Get Alby one, you had a little bit of a write up about the person. Were there particular questions that you maybe asked that person to kind of get put together that person?
Not many, because this is my close friend, so I know a lot about him, and I know in general his experience with Bitcoin and crypto. I asked him some questions just to make sure. So he had almost none. I mean, he bought some crypto but held it on an exchange, and I think he did like one transaction. It was actually a Lightning transaction, but he didn't know much about Lightning. Yeah, but to actually during that, I think most, or it's not that useful for Alby to, like most of Alby users are now at least somehow already users of Bitcoin, kind of current users of Bitcoin, or more powerful users that have their own node and all that stuff. So I was kind of, during the experience, I was sometimes filling up the gaps of Lightning knowledge to Marek, just to kind of simulate he's a bit more that he used Lightning more, just to it wasn't much, but just to have it a bit more. It was a spontaneous kind of this map. I did very spontaneously. I literally woke up and I thought, oh yeah, that's a good way to check the onboarding, and I just went to my friend and said, let's try it. I mean, of course, it can be like it can be prepared much more structured and much more. You can prepare some scenario, like a quick scenario to ask, or you can do a few usability tests, right, and merge them together. But then they may have very different experiences, so you may come up with 2 journey maps. This is just a singular experience.
And are there any questions that you are asking the person going through the user experience? Are there like general questions that you ask them, or are you more observing? And then if you see they're struggling with something, you just ask them, is there something you're struggling with, or something like that?
Yes, the second part. So I didn't want to prime him I just said like 2 sentences at the beginning that you heard about Alby, you want to try it. You heard about Lightning Network and Lightning ecosystem, and you want to try it. And then I was just observing and kind of reacting to what Marek was doing. I was not helping him unless he was really stuck. Then I kind of identified it's not probably worth just letting him googling for 20 minutes or something. So I was kind of explaining what's happening a bit and moving forward. But yeah, I was reacting uh, to his experience, not trying to interrupt too much. I think it can be. Well, I don't know if it's worth structuring too much. I mean, it's because then that's more a classic usability test than a kind of taking a kind of real experience, right? So maybe there are some cases, as I said, I think it's very flexible. So maybe there are some cases where it's really worth very structuring this. I don't know, and I haven't used that in that. I haven't done a journey map that structured yet. So, but maybe there is some scenario when it's worth it.
I'll leave the floor open to everyone else to ask Jakub any questions, or if you have any comments, feel free. This call is open for everyone to talk.
I mean,
Jakub?
oh, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. So first of all, Jakub, thanks for a very nice presentation. I have a question, probably specifically about if you look at it from the topology perspective, like kind of the assumption user journey map. It almost feels to me that it's kind of a brainstorming exercise, kind of that you would probably do maybe as a team, because oh, here's this feature, or complete a new product, and we are kind of brainstorming how it probably should work. So maybe do you have some experience how maybe run some kind of workshop, or how to kind of basically do it? Because one thing is kind of my idea as a single person, but how maybe I kind of bring all the kind of insights from different people from the organization together, and creating something that everyone agrees on.
Yeah, I haven't done assumption-based journey maps. So what I found in literature is that it may be useful. Yeah, as you say, I think brainstorming is a good use case. So we kind of brainstorm what we think the experience is. It's probably good when there's where you don't have easy access to your user base, and or you need to organize more how to get that access.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe to organize it, before you organize it, you maybe I think that assumption-based map can help you come up with how to organize it better. So that's my idea how it can be used, but I haven't done it yet. I haven't done workshops on this, or haven't been part of doing that.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
I think doing a future. I also haven't done the future state journey map, but I think it'd be fun to, especially if you have, like, for example, with Bitcoin is a Gate, we have a list of very good practices. So I think we could come up with like a future state ideal experience of some of some using a wallet or whatever, right? Or self custody or any other Bitcoin activity. Yeah, that may be useful somehow, maybe for product builders to kind of see, because the design guide is a kind of like a big encyclopedia, and that a future state ideal experience could be like a kind of very quick, high level look on how the good experience may look like. But I haven't done that either. I don't know how often people do it and how really useful is it. This is just my ideas about this.
The last time, well, a few years ago, when I looked into journey maps, the thing that I really missed, it's such a great format, but it's so hard to work with. A lot of journey maps, if you look them up online or so, people do them in offices. They're big, printed out in massive sheets on the walls. They're very detailed, but they're not digital. They're not fluid. There are no tools where 10 people can collaborate and improve it over time. When you start with one that's maybe based on assumptions, and then over time you make it more focused on data, and you can leave comments and all of this stuff. I think some of those swimming lanes or whatever they're called at the bottom in other journey maps, they can also refer to different departments in a company. Like some of them might be tech problems, some of them might be design things or customer service things or so. So it's such a great thing to get all kinds of different people on board, but they're kind of hard to collaborate around now. It'd be cool to find some way to improve that.
Yeah, well, interesting, or maybe sideway information, but sometimes doing the emotional graph, it's not that easy to assess what's the emotional kind of vector of that step, some steps. And I read that sometimes in collaborative way they do it individually and then they compare. And sometimes, usually most of the graph, it's like you can see that person is angry or something, but there are some places where it's not that clear and people interpret it in a very different way. So, but then if you do it separately and compare, you can discuss why there are differences and maybe some insights can come up from this one, right? But yeah, it's hard to. This one we did. I think. Yeah, so we held interviews and we had like data from interviews in a big table, and then we were just we split the task. So a few person in the team did like a few lanes, the other did other lanes, but then kind of checked each other. So if there's nothing missing, but yeah, there are some difficulties in how to do it well. But I think it really. I like this part that when it's done and it's done well, I think, and like the team agrees that it's let's say it's a well described experience, then it can really bring that mental models together, right? Of how the users experience the product. So it's worth it, and I also find it. So especially with like opportunities and pain points, and you can of course expand it. I found it quite useful and easy to from that high level, oh, there's opportunity to fix that, to come up with, okay, what can be a feature or what's blocking us from that. And then just from that, you can go straight to design. So it's not that, I find it quite easy to work on this. When you're at this point of interpreting data, I think it's very useful. But I think there's also a risk of doing journey map maybe too much, like you put so much work and a lot of data, it may not be useful at all if you pick up too much lanes, or I don't know, you try to make it too detailed with every click as a separate state. And we also need to find a balance how to really create in a way that it's useful and not just doing a research for research sake. It's not like overdoing it. So I agree. I haven't done a research map on a non-digital way. It's like on a wall. I heard there were people who were doing that before COVID. So it probably there's different dynamics there as well.
Yeah, I think that's a difference between creating this beautiful, perfect artifact versus having something that you continuously work with. It's like code on GitHub continuously changes through things. It's never just printed out and put on a wall, and then it becomes impossible to change. You're going to have to reprint it and put it back up again. But it's this thing that's continuously being worked on. And I think that's always better to have this type of work. I really feel like, we should do some workshops and take other projects around Bitcoin, stuff we're exposed to working on, and do personas, do journey maps, look at jobs to be done, and really apply all this stuff. I think that might also help make it very visible to others who don't know these tools so well, as to how beneficial they are.
And speaking of just off a tangent of what Christoph just said, I know that the Get Alby team posted in their Slack channel, that they actually thanked you for your work, and they said thanks for Jakub's work. We've now made some changes to the interface. So I was just curious, what kind of what were their biggest takes from you presenting this to them? I'm guessing you probably jumped on a call with them, so I'd be interested to know how you presented it to the team and how they kind of received that feedback, and then what next steps they then took based on that.
So I recorded. As far as I remember, I recorded basically walking through the whole persona, the whole map, and I also had one or two meetings with team members, separate one of the team member, and just asking some questions because I had some questions why it's that way or does it need to be that way. And then when I had it clear, I just started designing. I also found out some problems that were I knew that it's not that easy to solve, that they need to my kind of strategic approach. So I just described them, but I didn't solve them all, of course. And I started implementing it. I think it's not implemented fully. Not all of my propositions are already implemented. There are some technical caveats that are a bit harder to immediately implement. But there are just low-hanging fruits, right? They also wanted for me to come up with low-hanging solutions that are kind of easy to implement, and they don't need to do an overhaul app. So I kept that in my mind when I was designing, and and because of that, it took 1 month or 1.5 months, and it was already implemented.
Super cool, really nice.
I think the current versus future journey maps probably a really big thing for Alby, because Lightning is growing, expanding. There are so many people with different knowledge of Bitcoin and whatnot, and the features are. I mean, you just added Nostr login also, right? Completely crazy experimental protocol. So that's probably huge differences in there. It will change a lot how people use this tool.
Mm. Yeah, because Alby had Nostr, there's this point in Nostr that someone could steal your keys if you're using web client that you pasted your key in. We know we should never paste Bitcoin private keys in websites, but early Nost users kind of recklessly pasted their Nost private keys to web clients because there was no other way. But Alby, using Alby, you can have your private key in Alby and then just sign every message on web clients. So they had this implemented before the kind of big boom of Nost users last month came about when Jack funded the protocol development. So it made it a big spike in usage. So I think they're now trying to ride the wave and just provide that needed features for Nostr users, also we don't know how Nostr it will look like in the future. So maybe a future centered ideal Nostr usage map could be useful for Alby and other Nostr, I don't know how to spell it, Nostr products. Definitely. I think it's a bit harder to come up. I think a future-based map, it's harder to get good data from, right? So I would assume it will be more assumed based until we do some user research around that. But yeah, it can start as assume based and then be modified into the perfect Nostr experience.
Do you think there's anything that user journeys are just not good at, that they suck, anything that doesn't fit in there, anything that's unfortunate about them?
Not really. I mean, yeah, if you don't overdo them and you don't do them for them to look beautiful, I guess I cannot find for now like a very good. Yeah, I mean they don't. Yeah, I cannot find. I mean, I'm sure they have their constraints, but it's just I cannot come up with at the moment.
Thinking out loud, I think there might be one, but it's nuanced because I would imagine that the smiley face and the sad face, it could sometimes it might not directly be pointing to a particular screen state. It could be pointing to a more general set of three screens. So, like you could say in the onboarding journey, so you're referring to like 4, 5, 8 screens. This is what the person struggled with, not happy face. So, in terms of being specific, maybe that could be really a slight weakness. So when you're maybe conveying that information to the UX designer and you're asking them then for suggestions like what do you think we could do to fix this problem, then maybe you're not the referral to that specific screen is a bit less. I'm just thinking out loud, could be that um yeah.
You mean that the feeling is kind of sustained across many screens, or I mean
Yeah.
you can do this by like keeping the level, right? Like if the emotional let's say strength doesn't change much, you can just have it on the same level. But this is, of course, emojis are this is an abstraction. We shouldn't be really very attached to this.
Yeah.
This should be just a kind of quick that should help to have a quick I would say even a reminder, especially if I recorded Mark's onboarding, so I also watched it, and when I was watching it, I was feeling that map. So this is more of a reminder how he how he let's say behaves or how he commented stuff.
Yeah. Would you maybe like as an additional maybe take screenshots of the screen that the person was struggling with and then
Yeah.
point at that screen with an arrow and say this is what the person said and then maybe present that to the UX designer and then they can then come up with a solution. Yeah, I remember doing that for Blixt and it was really a good way of giving feedback to the designers and to the team because they're like, oh, I know exactly which screen you're talking about or which button or which piece of text. And I'm thinking out loud, maybe it's a bit easier then for the UX designer to work with something that's a bit more, I know you're referring to this button or you're referring to this paragraph of text. Like, what can we do to fix that? But I think that this provides that sort of overall, I think it's really good because then you can really see like, okay, in the onboarding journey, there's a lot of unhappy faces. Like, guys, we really need to concentrate on the onboarding part of Get Alby, for example.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think screenshots here will be useful, very useful. It's missing a bit, but yeah, I'm happy that I extended it to first usage in a while because I think the worst experience he had actually There was this case in Alby when you pay WebLN invoices. So there is just on a website, you pay an invoice, and usually there's a notification in a browser that it's successful. So you click pay, and Alby distinction disappear, and after half a second, you have a browser notification that it's paid. You paid 500 sats or whatever, but it doesn't appear if people have notification off. So. And it was a case in Marek case. So Alby has this promise of very smooth Lightning Web integration. So they paint this future of Lightning payments on web, that it's interoperable and very smooth. But then you kind of paid on the web and you don't know if it went through, especially if a website doesn't also visually confirm that, because not all websites immediately confirm or show any sign of confirmation. Yes, you pay the invoice. So at that point, it's a quite negative experience, because the user doesn't know if he paid, and he needs to click on the extension and see the transaction list and see, okay, I paid, but it's not smooth, right? He needs to stop and click and check. There's a confusion. So there's no moment of truth here, but I would describe it as a kind of moment of truth, right? So you onboarded, you bought this vision of smooth Lightning Web economy, and then you have this kind of, you're let down that it doesn't work that well. So this is like not strictly part of the onboarding, but this is what users can after just after onboarding, they can experience that. And sometimes the solution is not the product itself. Sometimes the solution is, and was one of my recommendation, was to really lobby the websites which uses WebLN to always show some confirmation, right? Visual confirmation. But also, I think Alby cannot assume that those websites always will have confirmation. So there need to be some confirmation in the Alby extension always, because many people have notifications turned off. So there is this very complex, sometimes the solution is just to outside of your product, but maybe in the sphere of influence, right? So if Alby team will talk to to the products that have WebLN, but they don't confirm visually, maybe they can implement some confirmation, and that will create a nice experience.
Yeah, that's a problem that Bolt Fun has a lot, because they cannot actually know if a transaction went through, because they use Lightning address, and and Alby communicates directly with the node of the recipient. The payment actually never touches Bolt Fun. So they can actually not confirm it, it's great for privacy, but it does make the interaction a bit shaky. But maybe that is something where Alby can just signal, like, hey, just received something, to make up for the website not being able to know.
Yeah. My recommendation is just right now, if there's WebLN payment, you click pay and it disappears. My recommendation is to show 2 seconds animation, it's paid, and then it disappears automatically. That's, I think, the easiest solution to that particular problem.
Well, this was really well presented, Jakub. I really thank you for the time that you took to put everything together. I know I've learned a lot just from watching you and watching your process. And yeah, is there any questions that anyone has for him, or anything that anyone would like to add?
Question for around the Alby process. Do you have a public style guide or some place where these types of documents that you create in your process, where those can be found? Or is the best way to just simply here and there check in the Slack channel or GitHub or so?
I assume, I mean, there's Alby workspace, but I'm not exactly sure if it's public. It's probably public to view for everyone, but I'm not exactly sure. Yeah, because of the Figma pricing. But maybe there is like a community version. I'm actually, I didn't know. So yeah, but I'm sure Alby team can share it with you if you ask them.
So we're going to have journey maps in the research kit, right?
Sorry, I was talking. I muted myself. Yeah, we're going to have user journey maps in the UX research toolkit. I'm actually going to work only on user journey mapping tomorrow. So that's the last piece of the puzzle in the UX research toolkit that needs to be worked on. Today, I've been working on the part that Jan was working on, which is the jobs to be done. I was only doing jobs to be done today. So tomorrow is everything that I've learned from Jakub's presentation and implementing that into the write-up. And yeah, but this has been really good.
I actually have one idea. I don't know if you're free to implement that or not, but because there's so many potential lanes you can, add to the journey map, I thought we can have like a component of, like a component where you can, one component of a lane, which have variants, and each variant is a different lane. So like opportunities, moments of truth, touch points, all that stuff. And then like user can just modularly, add as many lanes as they want in their journey map and kind of change the variant. So I had this idea of how it could be.
Okay, I mean your Figma skills are probably better than mine. So if you're happy to put a little bit of something together, I'm happy to work with whatever you put together there. Yeah, but yeah,
Yeah,
I'm on board. If it works, if it's practical, then yeah, why not? We can
I
definitely.
don't know if you want components in the research toolkit. I mean, it's
Yeah, I'm kind of making everything in FigJam at the moment, and some things are not suitable for FigJam. They're more suitable for just as a Google document. So it's just more like what's easy for people to use. So that just depends. If it's easy for them to type in a Google Doc versus FigJam or Figma, then I'll do a Google Doc, for example.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And how will the toolkit will be up? How will it fit the Bitcoin design guide? Will be just a link to the website, or there'll be some? I just wonder what's your plan for that.
At the moment, it's going to be linked to outside of the Bitcoin Design Guide, so it's kind of living in its own space at the moment. It'll probably be on the domain name Bitcoin UX Research slash toolkit. But at the moment, it's just being built online in Notion. I think you know Notion. And then my next step is then to basically link it to that domain name, which yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay, cool, exciting.
I think the UI kit, the research kit, will have way more content, and the guide is not that should fit into the guide, so the guide can just integrate maybe some more findings, maybe some case studies, research and research results in various different places, and then just link out to the super in-depth content.
Yeah, and it would be great if, for example, as Christoph said, if we approach, I don't know, let's say Blockstream or a wallet in the space, and we kind of do the user journey mapping with them, and then we put that in as a case study in the guide. So then you've got the UX Research Toolkit. Hey, this team has used it, because then it gives it that bit of credibility as well, I think. So, yeah. I'll stop the recording. Let me just...